Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. In Afghanistan, multiple rockets have rocked Kabul, including the diplomatic district on the country's 101st Independence Day. The Interior Ministry says several rockets were fired from two vehicles in the city. No casualties have been reported so far. India has recorded the world's highest number of daily deaths from COVID-19 as 876 more lost their lives, taking the toll to nearly 52,000. Brazil has reported 684 deaths and nearly 20,000 infections in the past 24 hours, while the US has recorded 440 deaths overnight, raising the toll to over 170,000 with 5.4 million infections. In Pakistan, 15 people have lost their lives to the virus overnight, taking the countrywide death toll to 6,190. Globally, the pandemic has infected over 21.8 million people and claimed more than 774,000 lives. Israeli forces have shot and martyred a Palestinian youth in the occupied East Jerusalem's Old City. Security guards shot the man near the entrance of the Bab Hutha, just outside the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Meanwhile, the US says Washington will not chase Palestinians for a peace deal with Tel Aviv as it shifts its focus on implementing the UAE-Israel Peace Pact. In a media briefing, senior White House advisor Jared Kushner urged Israel to focus on creating new relationships and alliances. Kushner added that Washington will not approve Tel Aviv's annexation in occupied West Bank for some time. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa has discussed regional security with Saudi Vice Defense Minister Khalid bin Salman during an official visit to Saudi Arabia. In a statement, the military's media wing said the two leaders also discussed matters of mutual interests. Earlier, the Army Chief also met his Saudi counterpart, General Fayyad al-Ruwaili, to discuss military ties. And in football, Inter Milan beat Shakhtar Donetsk by 5-0 at Merkur Arena to reach the Europa League final. The Italian side will meet five-time Europa champion Sevilla in the final on Friday. News in detail after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now we start our news bulletin from Afghanistan, where multiple rockets have struck Kabul, including the diplomatic district, on the 101st Independence Day of the country. The Interior Ministry says several rockets were fired from two vehicles in the city. No casualties have been reported so far. It was also not immediately clear who was behind the attacks. Eyewitnesses say 10 people were seen taken to the hospital by rescue services. The strikes come as the Kabul administration and the Taliban are set to start the intra-Afghan negotiations. Meanwhile, Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani has warned that a possible international deal on the fate of Afghans will be rejected by Kabul. The president pledged that the Republic and the government forces will not be compromised in the peace process with the Taliban. In an interview, Afghan presidential spokesman Sadiq Siddiqui said the government will halt release of the remaining prisoners until the Taliban free their troops. Responding, the Taliban said they will not attend the intra-Afghan talks until the government releases all the 400 prisoners as promised. Taliban spokesman Suhail Shaheen said the group has fulfilled its obligations and has no other security personnel left in its custody. The US, France and Australia are opposing the release of some of the prisoners. Ghani signed the decree to release the prisoners a week ago, the process that was first approved by the Loya Jirga. Now, Brazil has reported 684 deaths and nearly 20,000 new COVID-19 cases in the past 24 hours, while the US has recorded 440 deaths overnight, raising the toll to over 170,000 with 5.4 million infections. Globally, the pandemic has infected over 21.8 million people and claimed more than 774,000 lives. This report has details.
Despite the hopes of a vaccine to be made and released soon, the new coronavirus continues to claim thousands of lives globally every day. The WHO says younger people, those in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, are the ones now driving the pandemic, and many don't know they have the virus. In the US, some schools are closing once more and shifting back to online instructions following infection clusters on campus. While in Argentina, thousands have taken to the streets to protest plans to extend coronavirus restrictions in the region. Mexican President Andrés Obrador has volunteered to be among the first to try a Russian vaccine for the novel coronavirus.
I would be the first that would allow to get vaccinated because it is very important to me. But we need to understand what is happening and to guarantee that it is effective and it can reach everyone.
In Europe, the second wave has caused many countries to fall back to lockdown restrictions as they fight to control the outbreak. Down under, the Australian Strait of Victoria has reported its lowest number of cases in a month, raising hopes that the second wave might be slowing down. In New Zealand, the biggest city of Auckland remains under lockdown as the country reported 13 fresh cases. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern hit back at US President Donald Trump for saying her country is experiencing a big surge in COVID-19.
Well, obviously it's patently wrong, but again, as I say, those people who are following what's happening around the world will see New Zealand's status. We are still one of the best performing countries in the world when it comes to COVID. Our work is focused on keeping it that way.
In Asia, mainland China has reported 22 new cases, all of them imported and no domestic transmissions. South Korean authorities are eyeing tougher restrictive measures as 246 new cases were reported overnight.
India has recorded the world's highest number of daily deaths from COVID-19 as 876 more lost their lives, taking the toll to nearly 52,000. The Health Ministry said 55,079 new cases were recorded, bringing the country's caseload to over 2.7 million. It said there are still over 673,000 active cases in the country. The ministry said Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu states make up 40% of all the confirmed cases. India remains the third worst hit country from the infection after the US and Brazil. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, the Health Ministry says more than 270,000 people have recovered from the COVID-19, while the active cases have reduced to 13,600. The ministry said 617 cases were reported overnight as the tally crossed 289,000. It said 15 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 in the last 24 hours, raising the death toll to 6,190. Sindh remains the worst hit province with over 126,000 infections, while Punjab has reported more than 95,000 cases. Moving on, Israeli forces have martyred a Palestinian youth in the occupied East Jerusalem's Old City. Security guards shot the man near the entrance of Bab Huta just outside the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society said its teams were prevented from entering the vicinity to treat the man before he succumbed to his wounds. Israeli police claim the Palestinian was neutralized in retaliation of alleged stabbing attack. The incident came hours after Israeli security guards shot and wounded a deaf Palestinian. The civilian was not able to hear the orders to stop at a checkpoint in the occupied West Bank. And the US says Washington will not chase Palestinians for a peace deal with Tel Aviv as it shifts its focus on implementing the UAE-Israel Peace Pact. In a media briefing, senior White House advisor Jared Kushner urged Israel to focus on creating new relationships and alliances. Kushner added that Washington will not approve Tel Aviv's annexations in the occupied West Bank for some time. He blamed Iran for provoking regional strife, saying Tehran will not want Saudi Arabia and Israel to make a peace agreement. The White House advisor said Riyadh is committed to the cause of a Palestinian state and its people's economic prosperity. Earlier, Israel's President Reuven Rivlin invited the UAE's de facto leader and Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan for a visit. Spain's royal plate has confirmed former King Juan Carlos has been living in the UAE since the 3rd of August. Earlier this month, the former king made a surprise announcement that he was leaving Spain amid a corruption investigation. The 82-year-old's finances are under scrutiny in a major corruption probe. He denies any wrongdoing and he said he is available if prosecutors need to interview him. Carlos is reported to be close to a number of key figures, including the UAE's de facto leader, Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. Juan Carlos abdicated in 2014 after close to 40 years in power. Now, the United Arab Emirates says its coast guards have intercepted 8 fishing boats northwest of Sir Abu Nuair Island. State media said the boats violated the state's territorial waters as the Coast Guard tried to stop them. It said the fishing boats did not comply with the Coast Guard's orders when asked to stop. The state agency said 3 pursuit and support boats were deployed to intercept the fishing boats. It said rules of engagement were applied on the vessels. Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa has discussed regional security with Saudi Vice Defence Minister Khalid bin Salman. Chief of Army Staff Bajwa is in Saudi Arabia on an official visit. In a statement, the military's media wing said the two leaders discussed matters of mutual interests. Earlier, the Army Chief also met his Saudi counterpart, General Fayyad al-Ruwaili, to discuss military ties. General Bajwa was presented the Guard of Honor at the Ministry of Defence upon his arrival. The head of the Inter-Services Intelligence, General Faiz Hamid, is accompanying the Army Chief. Moving on now, more workers have joined the nationwide strike in Belarus as protests over presidential elections intensify. The EU says it has called an emergency virtual meeting over deepening political crisis in Belarus.
President of the European Council Charles Michel says Belarusians have the right to decide on their future and freely elect their leader. Ukraine has recalled its ambassador to Belarus for consultation to assess the prospects of further relations with Minsk. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says the alliance poses no security threat to Belarus. In a statement, Stoltenberg said the bloc supports a sovereign and independent Belarus. Earlier, Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko accused NATO of massing forces on his country's western borders. The president flew to a factory in Minsk to rally support, but he was met by angry workers. Lukashenko said he will never cave into pressure, and if somebody provokes something at protests, he will sort it out in a hard way. Earlier, Committee to Protect Journalists said police have brutalized at least 29 of 68 journalists who have been detained since 9th August.
Now, Russia has summoned the Dutch chargé d'affaires in Moscow to protest over an incident of alleged spying. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said Moscow discovered spy equipment in the official car of the Russian military attaché. The statement said these unfriendly actions further complicate the already difficult relations between the two countries. Moscow has called for immediate measures to prevent similar incidents in the future. According to Dutch public television, Prime Minister Mark Rutte declined to comment over the development. Espionage cases have multiplied in recent years between Russia and the Western government. More news coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now moving on with the news stories. In Somalia, 7 people have been killed and 5 others wounded in twin suicide bombings at a military base. Military officials say Gulf Gadood Berry District Commissioner and District Police Commander were among those killed. The official said after the bombings, Al-Shabaab militants entered the military base in the vicinity. They said the Somali army repulsed the attack and the base is now in their control. Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for the attack. Earlier, Somali forces ended an hours-long siege by the militants at a hotel in Mogadishu that claimed lives of at least 16 people. In India, 7 people have died in 2 days of torrential rains in the western state of Gujarat. The Met Department has predicted heavy showers in different parts of the state during the next 3 days. Officials said the deaths occurred due to extreme flooding and waterlogging. They said the government has deployed disaster response teams in the affected state. Gujarat has so far received 79% of its average annual rainfall. A high alert has been issued as some 94 dams and 90% filled. China has awarded the country's first COVID-19 vaccine patent to CanSino Biologics. State media said it is the first COVID-19 vaccine patent granted by China. It said the patent for the coronavirus vaccine has issued on August 11th. CanSino said it is also in talks with Russia, Brazil and Chile to launch phase 3 trials in those countries. CanSino's Hong Kong shares rose around 14% and its Shanghai shares rose by 6.6% following the announcement. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia said it plans to begin phase 3 of the clinical trials for the CanSino vaccine this month. In southwest China, the world's oldest panda in captivity celebrated its 38th birthday in the zoo of Chongqing municipality. Her age is comparable to a human age of about 110 to 140 years old. More in this report.
Xinjing, the giant panda, is celebrating her birthday at a zoo in China. She is among less than the 30 pandas in captivity that have an age of over 30. Many local residents and fans came to the zoo to jointly make a big cake out of various fruits and bamboo shoots and leaves and sing birthday songs. Despite her great age, Xinjing maintained a good body with her weight controlled at 95 to 100 kgs. The Chongqing Zoo specially made a recipe for her age to let her have more meals a day but less food at each.
We have 3 to 4 staff members taking care of her, and other staff offer help at any time. We usually cut bamboo leaves into pieces before feeding her. We want to maintain Xinjing's weight at a suitable level so as to prevent such diseases as obesity, hypertension, high cholesterol and high blood sugar, among others.
Chongqing is known as an oven city during summer. To fend off the summer heat, zoo staff only let Xinjing go outside the panda house in the morning or evening.
We have built a pond outdoors so that she can swim in it. We also often prepare cooling foods for her to eat, such as watermelons.
Xinjing has given birth to 10 baby pandas so far. As of the end of 2019, she had 153 descendants who live in more than 20 countries and regions, including Canada, America, Japan and China's Taiwan, Hong Kong and Shanghai.
The world's most expensive COVID-19 masks is in the works at a jewelry shop in Jerusalem. Watch this report to find out more.
Israeli jewelers are crafting the $1.5 million object for an unnamed US-based client on condition that it would be the priciest in the world. Made of 18-karat gold and studded with 3,600 black and white diamonds, the mask will be fitted with an N99 filter to offer a high level of protection.
I think it's a very expensive mask. I think instead to buy that mask, he could maybe invest into finding the cure to the coronavirus. But, you know, to the end of the day, he has all money, so he's able to do whatever he wants. Who knows, maybe one day I can buy one for her.
No, thank you. I don't want a mask that expensive.
The jeweler plans to deliver the mask personally when it is completed in October. The mask, which a team of around 25 artisans is working on, might be viewed a lavish display of wealth during hard economic times, but for the designers, it is above all a work of art.
We're very proud to be able to create such a mask that provides so much work to so many people that desperately need these jobs in these challenging times.
The Glitzer face mask may not be a practical piece of protective equipment to wear, but it is expected to weigh 270 grams, over half a pound.
Well, now Asian markets are trading mixed as investors continue to monitor tensions between the United States and China. Investors are pushing cautious rally as they also follow the latest developments surrounding a potential vaccine for COVID-19. Japan's Nikkei 225 is trading lower by just over 0.2%. Shanghai Composite is trading higher by over a fraction. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index has gained marginally. Over in South Korea, where stocks returned to trade following the Monday's holiday, the Kospi dipped 0.14%. Meanwhile, international benchmark Brent crude oil prices dipped by less than 0.5%. Now in football, Inter Milan beat Shakhtar Donetsk by 5-0 at Mercosur Arena to reach the Europa League final. The Italian side will meet five-time Europa champions Vela in Finland on Friday, seeking their first trophy since 2011. Strikers Lautaro Martinez and Romelu Lukaku hit races as the utterly dominant Italians delivered a tactical masterclass in Dusseldorf. Martinez opened the scoring in 90th minute as Shakhtar failed to register a shot on target in the first half. Danilo D'Ambrosio hit the second in 64th minute, while Martinez struck again 12 minutes later for the Nerazzurri. Lukaku got in late with a brace for his 33rd goal for the season, one short of legendary Ronaldo's record set in 1997-98 season. And now it's time for the weather updates across the globe. Well, that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News. Take care.